I think I got in the same way as a lot of people did at my age. I had an older brother who listened to Metallica, so we'd go on family trips and listen to Master of Puppets and then that sort of thing. In grade 3, I got really into Black Sabbath. And then after that, as soon as I heard Iron Maiden for the first time, I think is when it took off pretty quickly into the world that we're in now.
All right, well, we all got into it the same reason, because we're all freaks and weirdos, and we didn't fit in with the other people in school and wherever at work.
There's no getting into it, it's just us.
Yeah, it's just who you are. You're sort of born this way. You find other like-minded people, and you fucking headbang and party together, and things just sort of happen naturally. And yeah, this is where the freaks go to party, so.
What got me into metal, actually, funny enough, was the Moffats when I was like 8 years old. I remember waiting up all night to see one of the new Moffats videos, and at the time it was supposed to be on. There was a Metallica video that came on. It was Enter Sandman, and the kid with the bed and the truck and stuff, and it really excited me, and that really got me into metal. And I ended up moving to Germany with my family the next year, and fortunately, there's a lot of metal there, so it really, actually, that's where I started finding out about Canadian metal, through magazines, German magazines. And my German friends on my block would be like, oh, this band Annihilator, this band Exciter, this band Anvil, so on and so forth.
Yeah, we came here because there's a huge scene. I discovered a band, Skullfist, at the time, and they brought us out, and they're doing good things these days.
My band, Goathorn, was from Pembroke, and we relocated to Toronto in 2001, so we could play more shows and get more exposure. And that sort of came to an end around 2006, and I guess morphed into what is now Cauldron.
I've been around the Toronto music scene since the late 80s. I grew up when the wave of thrash metal was first starting in Toronto with a band Sacrifice that lived in my neighborhood. And it was a lot more of a smaller scene back then.
Of course, it's like the biggest city in Canada with like the best rock and metal scene. Maybe in North America right now, in my opinion. Like, all of our peers are doing really well and working really hard, so that inspires us, and like to be around really cool creative headbangers is awesome, because it keeps allows us to make really loud music and have people who want to come out and dig it.
There's certain venues, the Bovine, Daryl, he's the man, he supports it, and we get shows when we want them, and he loves having us there. We bring out people, it's a huge deal, right? Hard Luck too, Darren. There's certainly camaraderie between bands, promoters, and anybody involved in the music scene or the heavy metal scene here in general, right?
I think it's a similar scene to Toronto in a lot of ways. Like, if you would go back even 10, 12 years, like early 2000s, the scene was almost non-existent. Like, I remember a time when I would see someone in an Iron Maiden shirt and I'd find them, shake their hand, and we'd talk for 10 minutes. And now there's a sea of Iron Maiden shirts. So like, the scenes have definitely grown over the last decade. Like, it used to be metal shows would have 3 people at them, or like, I knew like 5 other people in the city that were into metal at that time, and now it's grown a lot. And I think it's a similar thing here. I know I've talked to Jay and Ian and guys from Cauldron and that sort of thing, and I remember when it was the same sort of thing. There was no one here that was into that scene, and since that time, now you look at Toronto and you've got Cauldron and Skullfist and a lot of bands that are sort of in the same niche, I guess, that the world views us in, and they're coming up all over Canada. It's still a small community, everyone sort of knows each other, but I think it's grown a lot right across the country.
Thrash has a lot of really big ground roots in Canada, Toronto specifically. Some of the coolest, most awesome thrash bands are all from Canada. Razor, everyone got a couple hours. Razor, Annihilator, Exciter, Pile Driver. These are just to name a few of like the Anvil. We live in fucking Toronto, of course. These are like just some of the big cult names of thrash metal in Canada, and a shitload of those bands come from Toronto. which is really cool, and it's really awesome to be able to like play shows and run into those people because they're all just like us. They're, you know, genuinely into the music, and that's why they started doing it. I was just at a show the other night with CC Diamond, and we saw fucking Rob Reiner and Lips from Anvil just, you know, hanging out, having a beer, have a shot with them, and, you know, chat about metal because we're all in it together. It's a really cool brotherhood thing going on in Toronto.
I think everybody cares about the Canadian metal bands, but nobody cares about the old Canadian rock bands. Everybody talks about Anvil and Razor, and they're all cool, but nobody remembers Helix, man.
Nobody knows BTO.
What about BTO? We used to cover Taking Care of Business in Europe, and we stopped playing it halfway through a tour because when we played it, everybody just sat still and gave us dirty looks, and they didn't like the song. They didn't even know the song.
And I think the Canadian metal scene has evolved a lot. I mean, you look at the 80s, and you got like bands like Annihilator and Exciter, and those guys doing like speed metal, thrash metal, and now there's like, you know, bands doing is that battle metal, power metal.
There certainly is. We're all fighting together for the same thing, right? And you know, bands like Cauldron and Skullfist have paved a direct path to Europe for the rest of us, you know, and we definitely get a ton of attention here because of bands like that. So
we've played pretty much everywhere in North America, and in Canada it's probably the best city for us. It probably was 10, 12 years ago too.
Well, touring anywhere gets your name out, but like specifically in Toronto, the crowds just keep getting bigger because Toronto's just one of those cities where it's very big on word of mouth and people know what's up, and it's really fucking awesome to be a band from Toronto. It's a great place.
You know, when I hear these bands, I think that people have fun playing this music, and it's not really about it's not about it being a competition or a sport to play the fastest and play the heaviest. It's just, I don't know, writing about amusing things and having a good time.
Because it's sweet tunes, and you know, people respect good music and good musicianship, and metal has a lot to offer in that.
Part of every music takes on different evolutions every year, but I think a lot of traditional metal where it's maybe based on guitar riffs and rock has maybe more of a longevity than electronic music, or when music's taken into the studio through an electronic process and made a little too perfect without the human edge. There's something about a traditional guitar tone and something rich with melody or riffs that gives it a long play value, that you can keep going back to it and keep like finding what you found in it when you first originally got into it.